They thought they were alone. They locked the doors, closed the blinds, and convinced themselves the silence meant safety. But silence is where they wait. These are 5 true horror stories from people who were home, and never alone. Story 1. The Man at the Bottom of the Stairs. It was a Wednesday night in late October. Cold, quiet, and too still. The kind of night where the world outside your window feels like it's holding its breath. I remember because I was between jobs, spending a lot of time at home, and my routines had gone a bit off track. My sleep schedule was wrecked. I'd been up late the last few nights, binge-watching shows, doom-scrolling, eating leftover takeout. That night wasn't supposed to be any different, but something felt off from the beginning. Not supernatural, not even dramatic, just wrong. A low static kind of wrong that buzzes in your chest but never explains itself. I live in a split-level house just outside a small town in Pennsylvania. Not quite the suburbs, not quite rural. The kind of neighborhood where most houses were built in the 70s and haven't changed much since. My parents bought it decades ago. They passed it down to me after moving to Florida, so I've been alone in it for the past 3 years. The layout's important. There's a small set of stairs from the front door that splits left to go up. Bedrooms, bathroom, and right to go down. Den, laundry room, basement entrance. I spend most of my time upstairs. That night I was in the living room with all the lights off except for the one over the stove in the adjacent kitchen. Just that dull yellow halo. Everything else was dark. I was curled up on the couch half watching a documentary about forensic psychology. One of those ones where they interview convicted killers. Something about their calm voices always creeped me out, but I couldn't stop watching. I remember pausing the episode to grab another soda. I stood up, stretched, and went into the kitchen. When I twisted the cap off the bottle, I heard something. A sound that didn't belong. It was soft, barely there. A footstep. I froze. Bottle in hand, ears straining. Nothing. I slowly crept toward the hallway that led to the top of the stairs. It was pitch black. I leaned over the railing and stared down. Total darkness. No movement. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was at the bottom of the stairs. Not moving, just standing. I told myself it was nothing. Old house, pipes, settling foundation. All the things I've told myself before. Still, I closed the door to the basement and flipped the deadbolt. I didn't go back to the couch. I turned on all the upstairs lights and sat at the kitchen table with the soda in front of me, now untouched. I kept glancing at the basement door like I was expecting it to rattle, but it didn't. Nothing happened. Eventually, I went to bed. I don't know what woke me up, but it was 3:17 a.m. when I looked at my phone. My room was cold, unusually cold. I sleep with the door cracked, and from my bed I can see the hallway. And at that exact moment, I thought I saw a shadow move past the opening. I didn't even breathe. There's something incredibly intimate about watching someone move through your house when you know they shouldn't be there. It's not like in the movies where you spring into action. You freeze. Your body becomes someone else's. All you can do is listen to the sound of your own heartbeat and try not to blink. I didn't move for a solid 5 minutes. The house had returned to silence, but my body was screaming at me to do something. I slowly reached for my phone and opened the camera app. I turned on the video, held it just above the covers, and pressed record. I couldn't bring myself to call anyone. Not the police. Not a friend. It was like some primitive part of me wanted to stay hidden. Calling would mean noise, and noise meant I was admitting it was real. Eventually, I crept out of bed. I didn't turn on the light. I just tiptoed down the hall, heart hammering, phone in hand, the flashlight still off. I made it to the top of the stairs and looked down. Nothing. But the door to the basement? It was open. That door had been bolted shut. I turned on every single light in the house and swept each room with a fireplace poker. Nothing. Basement was empty. No signs of forced entry. Windows locked, doors shut. No one. I felt insane. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the kitchen, shaking. By the time the sun came up, I'd convinced myself I'd had some kind of waking dream. Stress, sleep deprivation, too much true crime. Until I checked the video I'd recorded. It was shaky, dark, barely anything visible. But for a single second just past the 142 mark, you can hear a creak, one of the floorboards in the hallway, and then a whisper. It says my name. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post it, didn't show friends. I deleted the video 2 days later. It made me nauseous to have it on my phone, like it was proof of something I wasn't ready to accept. I stayed out of the house during the day, went to coffee shops, grocery stores, even a random co-working space. Anywhere but there. But every night I had to come back. A week passed, and then the dream started. Same one, every night. I'm lying in bed facing the hallway. The house is silent. I can feel someone watching me from the doorway, but I can't move. Sleep paralysis. The figure stands there for minutes. Tall, thin, unmoving. Eventually it takes a step forward. The floor creaks. It leans in slowly, so slowly, and then it whispers in my ear. I've been waiting for you to see me. I wake up drenched in sweat. Every single night. The worst night came exactly 2 weeks after I first heard the footstep. I was brushing my teeth, lights on, music playing softly from my phone. Normal night. I even felt okay for once. I spat into the sink and looked up into the mirror. There was someone standing in the hallway behind me. Not close. Just far enough back that I couldn't see their face. Just a silhouette. No movement. No noise. Like they'd been standing there for hours, watching. I turned around and nothing. The hallway was empty. I rushed to the front door, locked. Windows, locked. Back door, secure. Then I checked the footage. I had a camera in the stairwell facing the basement door, one of those cheap indoor cams you pick up at Target. I rarely checked it, just installed it after my parents moved out. There was a motion alert time-stamped at the exact minute I was brushing my teeth. I opened it, expecting dust or a bug, but what I saw froze me. The video showed the basement door opening on its own, slow, deliberate, and behind the door, in the darkness, just visible for a second, was a figure standing at the bottom of the stairs. I left the house that night and checked into a motel an hour away. I never went back to live there. I packed up during the day a week later with 3 friends, told them it was bad vibes, that I'd been having nightmares. I didn't want to say the rest out loud. I moved into a condo near the city, brighter, newer, fewer shadows. I've been here for 9 months now. No strange dreams, no footsteps. I sleep with the door shut and the hall light on. Always. I tell myself it was a breakdown. Stress, isolation, maybe a mental snap from being unemployed and stuck inside too long. But sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I get this image in my mind clear as daylight. That man, still at the bottom of the stairs, waiting. Story 2. She crawled out of the attic. I used to think home invasions were rare, the kind of thing that happens to someone else, someone careless, someone who leaves their door unlocked or lives in a bad neighborhood. I wasn't that person. My doors were always locked, my windows sealed. I even installed a deadbolt on the inside of my bedroom door after a particularly disturbing true crime binge. I live in a small rental house just outside of Eugene, Oregon. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, tiny kitchen, and a weirdly large attic. The house was built in the 40s and has this sort of crooked charm to it. The floors creak if you breathe wrong, and the attic hatch is directly in the hallway outside the bedroom like a square mouth always ready to open. I never went up there. The previous tenant left a few boxes and the landlord told me not to mess with them. Just storage junk, he said, brushing it off. Still, it bothered me, not knowing. It was a Tuesday night when it started. I was home alone, working late on my laptop from the couch. It was just past 1 a.m., and I was trying to finish an article on sleep disorders of all things. I remember feeling that weird heaviness you get when you've been staring at a screen too long, tired but wired. That's when I heard it. A soft thump. Not outside, not on the porch, from above me. I muted the TV and listened. Silence. Then again, a dragging sound. Wood on wood. A dull scrape. It was coming from the attic. I froze. My first thought was raccoon. Maybe a squirrel. Rodents make noise, right? But this wasn't skittering. It wasn't light. It sounded like someone or something shifting their weight. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like minutes. Then I grabbed the broom and walked to the hallway. The attic hatch stared back at me. It was closed. Dusty. Still. I stood under it, heart pounding in my ears, and gently tapped the ceiling with the broom handle. Nothing. But then, a knock back. 3 soft knocks directly above my head. I dropped the broom and stumbled backward. I don't remember grabbing my phone, but I know I texted my friend Jenna something like, "Hey, weird question. You ever hear noises from your attic?" She didn't reply. I didn't sleep that night. I locked my bedroom door and lay in bed with a flashlight pointed at the ceiling. Nothing happened, but I swear I heard breathing. The next morning I told myself I'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation, auditory hallucination. I even Googled it. Apparently, your brain can make up sounds when you're overly tired. That night I made tea, turned off all the lights except one, and curled up on the couch with a blanket and headphones. If something was going to scratch above my head again, I didn't want to hear it. But around 2:30 a.m. I felt this weird pressure, like I was being watched. I paused the podcast and pulled my headphones off. The house was silent. I glanced down the hallway. The attic hatch was open. Not just cracked, fully open, the wooden square swung down with the metal ladder partially unfolded. I hadn't heard it open. I hadn't moved. I just stared. And then, a whisper, a voice, coming from above. "You're awake." I couldn't move. My body locked up. I felt like my spine had frozen. The voice didn't sound angry. It sounded curious. Female. I stood, slowly, still holding my blanket like it would protect me. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but I didn't dare speak. I backed away toward the kitchen and grabbed a knife from the drawer. The whole time my eyes were on that open attic. I couldn't see anything inside. Just darkness. Then the sound of the ladder shifting. A creak. Wait. Someone, or something, was starting to climb down. I bolted. I ran outside barefoot, into the cold, and sat in my car with the knife in my lap, locked the doors, and called the police. When they arrived, they didn't find anything. No one in the attic. Nothing stolen. They said the attic looked bare, but one officer mentioned a small mattress and some water bottles shoved into the corner, partially hidden behind boxes. I asked if there were fingerprints. They said they'd file a report, but there was no evidence of a break-in. I didn't sleep at home that night. Over the next week, I stayed with Jenna. She thought I was exaggerating, suggested I was sleep-deprived or maybe even sleepwalking. I didn't argue. I just wanted a normal night. By the 3rd night, I started to feel stupid. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I left the hatch open without realizing it. It didn't explain the voice or the ladder creaking, but your brain can fill in gaps when you're scared. So I went home. The house smelled musty, cold. I left all the lights on as I unpacked my overnight bag. I avoided the hallway and slept on the couch, TV playing quietly. At 4:12 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps, but they weren't above me. They were in the hallway. I grabbed my phone and sat up. The sound stopped. I turned my head toward the hall. The attic hatch was open again, and at the top of the ladder, barely visible, was a woman. She was crouched, one hand on the rung, her face just beneath the ceiling line. I couldn't see her clearly, but her head was tilted sideways. Her hair hung down like black strings. She was smiling, wide, unblinking. We stared at each other for a full 10 seconds, then she crawled down the ladder, slow like an animal. Her arms first, then her legs contorting, jerky. She didn't break eye contact. I ran. Again. Out the front door, knife in hand, no shoes. I didn't stop until I was in my car. I didn't call the police this time. I called Jenna and begged her to pick me up. I stayed with her for almost a month. But that didn't stop the nightmares. In every one, the woman is already inside the house, hiding behind doors or inside cabinets. She moves wrong, too fast, then suddenly still, and she always says the same thing. You let me in. Eventually, I went back with a locksmith and had the attic hatch permanently sealed. Not just latched, bolted shut from both sides. We even cut the metal ladder off. I haven't heard anything since, but sometimes, when the house is completely quiet, I still feel like someone is directly above me, pressing their face to the floorboards, whispering through the walls. One morning, 2 months later, I found a small hair tie on the hallway floor. I don't have long hair. I used to believe people can't just live in your house without you knowing. That the worst thing that could happen when you're home alone is hearing a bump in the night. Now I know worse things can be silent, patient, smiling, and living just above your head. Story 3. The Guest List. I've never believed in ghosts. I still don't. But something happened to me that I can't explain. And it wasn't a ghost. It was worse. It was real. And it was smart. This happened 2 winters ago, right after the holidays. I was 29 at the time, living alone in a small rental cabin up in the mountains of northern Idaho. It wasn't remote. There were neighbors, just not close enough to see or hear anything unless you really screamed. The cabin was meant for seasonal vacationers, but I was living in it year-round, working remotely, trying to figure life out after a brutal breakup. The house was simple. 1 floor, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a narrow living room with an old fireplace, and a storage shed out back that I never used. I spent most of my time inside with the heater cranked, buried under blankets, half working and half streaming shows I'd already seen 5 times. I hadn't spoken to another human face-to-face in 2 weeks. At first I loved it, until the first name appeared. It was January 12th. I remember because I had just ordered a pizza and was digging through an old drawer in the kitchen for candles. There was a blackout scheduled the next day and I wanted to be ready. That's when I found it, a folded piece of paper stuck between 2 placemats. It was titled, Guest List, Saturday, January 14th. I assumed it was from the last tenant. The note was written in loopy cursive with a red pen. There were 6 names listed beneath the date. Hannah, Travis, Dorian, Mila, me. You, that's what it said. Literally, you. No name. Just the word. It felt like a joke. Or a prank. I actually smiled at first, but something about it bothered me. The date. 2 days from now. Saturday. I threw it away. The next morning, I found the note again, on my kitchen counter. Same paper, same handwriting, same list. I live alone. I hadn't opened a window. I'd locked the doors. I didn't touch the trash. I checked every room. Nothing. No one. This time I burned the note in the fireplace. I watched the flame chew through each name, curling the edges until the ink melted and the paper turned to ash. I didn't sleep that night. January 14th arrived, snow-covered and quiet. I tried to distract myself, cleaning, baking, TV with the volume a little too loud. But no matter what I did, I couldn't stop looking at the clock, waiting for something to happen. I was halfway through making lunch when I heard it. A knock at the door, one sharp knock, then silence. I froze. My hands were shaking. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. There was no one there. But something had changed. There was a coat on the hook by the front door. A long, heavy one, green wool, double-breasted. It hadn't been there that morning. It wasn't mine. I opened the door. Snow on the steps, untouched. No footprints, no wind, no sound. I closed the door and locked it. That night, it felt like the walls were breathing. I lay in bed with every light on. I turned the TV volume up again just loud enough to hear something if it moved. At 2:14 a.m., I heard it. A voice. From the living room. Muffled. A woman's voice. Laughing. Talking. Then another voice. Deeper. Male. Then another. And another. A party. I got out of bed, heart hammering, and crept down the hallway. The lights in the living room were flickering. No music. Just voices. Laughing. Conversing. I rounded the corner and the room was empty. But the voices continued. Clearer now. I could make out phrases. No, he doesn't know yet. Don't tell her, it ruins it. She'll figure it out, eventually. That's what makes it fun. The fireplace was cold, the couch untouched, the windows locked. Then, all the voices stopped at once. A full second of silence. And then, one voice, right behind me. She's here. I ran back to my bedroom, locked the door, and didn't sleep. When the sun rose, I made coffee with shaking hands and packed a bag. I was going to leave, drive into town, find a motel, call someone, but I couldn't find my car keys. I searched for an hour, then 2. When I opened the fridge to check inside, I found them sitting on the middle shelf, on top of a white plate. On the plate were 6 slices of cake. I hadn't made any cake. By then I stopped pretending this was something I could explain. I stopped texting, stopped calling my sister. I didn't want to hear the pause before they laughed or told me I was stressed. I wasn't stressed, I was being watched, manipulated, played with. That night, I didn't go to bed. I sat in the corner of the kitchen with a knife in one hand and a flashlight in the other. The lights flickered again around 1 a.m. And then I saw it. Someone standing outside the window. Just the silhouette. Not moving. Staring. I bolted out of the kitchen, but when I opened the front door, no one. I checked the snow. Still no footprints. That was the night I decided to go into the shed. I'd avoided it since moving in, too cold, too cluttered, but I remembered the landlord saying the power meter was back there, and I thought maybe I could cut the power and stop whatever was happening. The snow had drifted high by the time I made it to the shed. I unlocked the padlock, opened the door, and the floor was covered in shoes. Hundreds of them, every shape and size, laid out carefully, like they were on display. Some were old and rotting, others looked brand new. And on the wall, written in thick red paint, or something darker, was this. Thanks for coming. Below it, another list. Fresh ink, still drying. It read, Hannah Travis Dorian Mila Me. You same as the note. Same order. Only this time, beside each name, was a crossed out date. All except one. You, January 21st. That was tomorrow. I stumbled back to the house. I didn't pack anything. I didn't grab clothes. I just took the keys and drove. I didn't stop until I reached a Walmart parking lot 40 miles away, and even then I kept checking the mirrors, waiting for someone or something to follow me. I tried to file a police report. They visited the cabin. It was empty. No shoes in the shed, no writing, nothing. They said I seemed shaken and suggested I seek help. I never went back. I had the lease terminated and moved states. I didn't care about the deposit, but a week ago I received a package. No return address, no postage. Inside was a red pen, a slice of cake, and a list. The same 6 names. Only now, all of them were crossed out, including mine. Underneath it, one new line had been added. Tell someone, and we'll have to start again. I burned the letter. I didn't tell anyone. Until now. Story 4. The Static Woman. It started with the static. I live in a small 1-bedroom apartment in Kansas City. Nothing special. Top floor, end of the hall, decent price. I work nights as a hospital transcriptionist, so I sleep during the day and work when the city's asleep. It's peaceful mostly. I don't talk to my neighbors, I barely see them. I've lived here almost 2 years, and I've always loved the silence. But a month ago, my speakers started picking up static when I wasn't using them. Not just when the computer was on, even when it was off. It wasn't loud, just this low, shifting hiss, like someone tuning an old radio. I'd only notice it when I got home from work in the early morning, around 4 a.m. I'd be brushing my teeth or taking off my shoes and I'd hear that faint noise coming from the desk in the corner. At first, I thought it was just interference. I moved my phone, unplugged the speakers, even replaced the power strip. Still the static. Then it started speaking. The first time, I was half asleep on the couch, trying to nap before a double shift. The speakers popped once, and then I heard it. A voice buried in the noise. A woman's voice, whispering. "Are you watching?" It was so soft I thought I'd imagined it. I sat up, pressed mute on the TV, and listened. Nothing. I laughed it off. Maybe it was from the show. Maybe I was dreaming. But the next morning, after work, I heard it again. "Are you watching?" Same voice. Clearer this time. Right as I turned off the lights to go to bed, it made my skin crawl. I stopped using the speakers, switched to headphones, unplugged everything when I wasn't home. But the voice kept coming. It wasn't every night, just enough to keep me from sleeping. I set up my phone to record one night, placed it by the speakers and left it on while I slept. The next morning, I played it back. There was static for most of the night. Then, around 3:12 a.m., a whisper. "I see you when you sleep." I deleted the file and threw up in the bathroom. I didn't go to work that night. I sat on the floor of my shower for hours, trying to convince myself it was a prank or a freak signal or something else. Anything else. But then the dreams started. In the dreams, I'm lying in bed, completely still. My eyes are open, but I can't move. I hear the static start. It grows louder, fuzzier, then suddenly stops. And then she appears. A tall woman, pale, hair matted and wet, like she's been in a flood. Her eyes are wrong, too wide, too black, like TV screens filled with static. She stands at the foot of the bed and just watches me. She doesn't blink, doesn't speak, just stares. Then, right before I wake up, she opens her mouth, and the static pours out of her like smoke. I wake up gagging, sweating, barely able to breathe. The dreams feel like memories. I finally told someone, my older sister, Mia. I didn't tell her everything, just that I thought someone might be watching me, that I was hearing voices through the speakers. She offered to come stay with me for a few nights. I told her no. I didn't want anyone else near this. I didn't even want her in the apartment. She asked me what the voice was saying. I told her I didn't want to repeat it. She didn't press. I started hearing the voice outside the speakers, in my room, in the bathroom, in the walls. Sometimes it would call my name. Other times it would laugh, low and sharp, like metal grinding. Then I began to see her, not in dreams, while I was awake. The first time I was brushing my teeth and caught movement in the mirror. When I turned, she was standing in the hallway, just past the doorway. Tall, frozen, staring. I blinked, and she was gone. The second time I saw her reflection in the TV screen, standing behind me, hands on the back of the couch. Again, when I turned, nothing. But the worst was the third time. It was 3:11 a.m. I woke up to the sound of my own name being whispered, not loud, right in my ear. "Wake up, I want to show you something." I sat up, shaking. The room was silent, but I couldn't move. I couldn't even speak. Then the TV turned on by itself. Static, bright white fuzz filled the room, and then her face, right up against the screen, distorted, screaming. I blacked out. When I came to, the apartment was quiet. The TV was off. The clock said 3:17. But something had changed. My hands were bleeding, palms torn open like I'd clawed at something. My arms ached. I checked the bathroom mirror. My eyes were bloodshot like I hadn't blinked in hours. And across the wall, written in long, erratic slashes, "Tell me you're watching." I hadn't written it. I finally tried to leave, packed a bag, called in sick, booked a cheap hotel across town. The minute I stepped outside my apartment, my vision blurred. I collapsed on the sidewalk, gasping. My heart was pounding like I'd run for miles. I crawled back inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, it stopped. Like the air relaxed around me. Like something had let go. I tried again that afternoon. Made it to the elevator. But before the doors closed, I saw her reflection in the mirrored wall, standing behind me. I slammed the door open button and ran back to my apartment. I started leaving the lights on all the time. The static only came in darkness. I covered the mirrors, moved my bed into the living room. I unplugged everything, no TV, no phone, just a flashlight, a hammer, and the sound of my own breathing. Still, every night she came. She would watch, whisper, crawl closer. Sometimes she would touch my hand while I slept. I'd wake up with cold fingers on my palm or the weight of her on my chest. Once I woke up with dried blood smeared across my neck and static in my ears so loud I couldn't hear my own scream. The worst night came 5 days ago. I woke up paralyzed again. She was above me, inches from my face. Her mouth opened wide, but instead of sound, I saw my own memories inside it, clips from my childhood, my job, my sister, my dreams, all flashing like corrupted video. Then she whispered, "I've been watching long enough. Now it's your turn." That was the last night I remember. Since then, I don't sleep. I sit in the dark with her. She doesn't touch me anymore. She just watches. Sometimes I watch the TV, but it doesn't show shows anymore. It shows my own apartment from different angles. Sometimes I see myself on the couch, or brushing my teeth, or sleeping. Sometimes I see myself standing behind myself. And sometimes the screen goes black and I see her eyes instead. They blink in reverse, like rewinding tape. I don't know how long I've been here. I don't feel hunger anymore, or time. But I see. I see things now. People, other watchers, other homes. She's not alone. And now, neither am I. Story 5. Room for one more. This is going to sound fake. I know that going in. But if I don't tell someone, anyone, what happened to me in that house, then it really will win. Because it wants me to shut up. It feeds on your silence, your denial. It wants you to forget. That's how it grows. It finds people who are alone, vulnerable, like me. And maybe like you, if you're reading this alone. I lived alone in a rental house in St. Paul, Minnesota. Cheap 2-bedroom, 1-story, decent neighborhood. It had been empty for a while when I moved in. The property manager said the last tenant left abruptly and didn't leave a forwarding address. The place looked fine. Quiet street, big backyard, lots of space. It was too quiet. I moved in just after Thanksgiving. I was recently divorced and desperate to live somewhere no one knew me. The house was clean, sparse. Carpet was old but freshly vacuumed. Walls were empty. It felt like an unlived-in stage set of a house. The first weird thing I noticed happened on day 2. I was brushing my teeth and I heard a noise from the spare bedroom down the hall. A soft click. When I checked, the bedroom door, which I'd left open, was shut. Not just swung shut by a breeze. I mean firmly latched, as if someone had closed it with intention. I opened it slowly. Empty room, old closet, beige carpet, still air. I shrugged it off. Then it happened again the next day, and the next. Every time I walked past the guest bedroom, the door would be closed. Sometimes latched, sometimes even locked. I told myself it was an airflow thing. Pressure. Maybe the doorframe was warped. I stopped thinking about it until one morning while shaving, I saw a note under my bathroom mirror, stuck to the glass. Just a sticky note. One word in cramped block letters. Occupied. I live alone. I keep my doors locked. I don't own sticky notes. From that day forward, things accelerated. Doors shut when I turned away. Lights flipped off in rooms I just left. The back hallway, the one that led to the guest bedroom, started to smell, like mildew and dust. But when I brought it up to the landlord, she said the ducts had been cleaned recently. Even sent me a receipt. Then came the footsteps, always soft, always at night, never frantic or heavy. just a steady pacing sound from the far room, like someone trying not to be heard. I bought a doorstop and wedged the guest room door open every day, but the next morning, I'd find the door closed again. One time, I woke up to find it locked. I don't even have a key for it. I had to remove the doorknob just to open it. The room was empty. But I swear to you, and I will never forget this, when I pulled the door open, the air that came out of that room felt heavy, like I was opening a refrigerator full of grief, and the shadows in the corners didn't move with the light. They clung to the baseboards like oil. That same night, I woke up at 3:11 a.m. to the sound of something breathing right outside my bedroom door. Not heavy, not wheezing, just quiet, steady breaths. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. I sat up, shaking, turned on the lamp. The sound stopped. But when I opened the door, the hallway was full of cold air, like the front door had been open for hours. I checked it, still dead-bolted, still locked. Windows too. I turned to go back to bed and stepped on something. A sticky note. Same handwriting, same pen. I'm still in here. I started sleeping with the lights on, the hallway light, the kitchen light, even the closet light. It didn't help. The feeling started to change. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was like something in the house was trying to wear me down, slow me, keep me too tired to leave. Every day I felt more drained, like my bones were heavier, like gravity in that house was stronger. Then I started forgetting things. I'd wake up and find things moved. Chairs pulled away from the table, the couch cushions flipped. Once I found my toothbrush in the freezer. Another time I opened the fridge and found my keys on the top shelf, next to an open, half-eaten apple I don't remember touching. And always, that bedroom door would be shut again. One morning, I woke up and there were 3 plates set at the kitchen table, each with food on them. Burnt toast, half a grapefruit, scrambled eggs. I hadn't cooked. The plates were old, not mine. Blue glass, faded patterns, like something out of the 1960s. I threw them out. The next morning they were back. Same arrangement, same half-eaten food, and this time, a note placed under one of the forks. Room for one more. I stopped sleeping. Completely. I sat on the couch, drinking coffee and watching the hallway like a soldier at post. 3 days passed like that. No movement, no sound. I thought maybe it had given up. But then, the voices came. It started as whispers. Not in the walls, in the vents, just behind the heater or beneath the floorboards. Murmured conversations I couldn't quite hear, then louder. By the end of the week I was hearing voices from the bathroom drain. Once, while washing my face, I heard a child say, "He won't last much longer, he's getting soft." Another time from the coat closet, "Don't let him leave, not yet." I tried to leave, packed a bag, booked a hotel in Bloomington, called an Uber. The driver texted that he was out front. I grabbed my stuff and went to the front door. It wouldn't open. I mean, it physically would not open. The deadbolt turned, the knob twisted, but the door wouldn't budge. It was like the frame had sealed shut. I ran to the back door. Same thing. I tried the windows. Stuck, like they'd all been super glued shut. I called the driver back. He never answered. When I checked the Uber app again, my ride history was blank. That night I broke down. I screamed into the walls, threw things, smashed the plates, tore the bedroom door off the hinges. Behind it, nothing. Same dusty carpet, same moldy closet, same overwhelming feeling of not being alone. I left the door open and went to sleep on the couch. When I woke up, the door was back on its frame, closed. I stopped leaving my room. I'd grab food from the fridge and run back to bed like a child scared of the dark. And then one night, the last night, everything went quiet. No doors, no voices, no breathing. I thought maybe it was over, until I saw the hallway light turn on by itself. One by one, the bulbs down the hall lit up, leading to the guest bedroom. Its door creaked open slowly, and inside, someone stepped out. Not fast, not jerky, just smooth, deliberate. A man, dressed in old clothes, dusty, paper thin. His face was blank, like it had been erased. No eyes, no mouth, no color. Just the faint impression of what used to be features. He turned to face me. Then behind him, another figure stepped out. A woman, then a child, then a fourth, then a fifth, each one blank, each one familiar. One of them was wearing my jacket. Another held my missing coffee mug. Another had my face. Not just resemblance. My actual face, perfectly mirrored, smiling with black gums. I ran to the bathroom and locked the door. I sobbed, I screamed, I tried to wake myself up. Then, from the vent in the wall came a whisper. "We're full now, but thank you." The lights went out, and I passed out from exhaustion or panic or both. I woke up 2 days later in a hospital. A neighbor had called the police after hearing screaming. They found me dehydrated, starved, curled in the fetal position. The house was empty. No second plates, no notes, no door issues. But the landlord didn't want me back. She said something weird, that every tenant she's ever rented to in that house had gone a little strange. I asked what she meant. She said, "They all started saying someone else lived there, but no one ever found anyone. I live in a studio apartment now. Tiny, cramped, no hallways, no guest rooms. I sleep with the lights on. I talk to people every day. I never isolate. I never let silence in for too long. And every few nights, I have the same dream. A small dinner table, 3 plates, and a note. Room for one more." And in the corner of the room, a door begins to creak open. Check your locks, check under the bed, check the closet, because if you hear something tonight, it might be your turn.